Okay, I believe that's all we have for board members in attendance today. We're joined by Matt Johnson, who is the select board representative, and it looks like we have a few folks here in the members of the public. Let's get kicked off here. We've got the approval of the minutes from January 3rd. Does anyone need a moment to review these, or are we comfortable to make a motion to approve them?
I apologize if the agenda said the January minutes, but it should be February. Sorry.
That's fine. I just want to pause because it looks like we did Paul fall off. And
Yeah,
we
here
do.
he comes.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem, Paul. We're just reviewing the minutes real quick. And if everybody's ready, I will make a motion to approve the minutes. We'll just make an amendment there to have them say February rather than January. The motion is made. Can I get a second?
I'll second the motion.
Excellent. Thank you, Jennifer. Roll call, Casey Atkins. Yes. James Howard.
Yes.
Jen Lutz.
Yes.
Paul Bohm.
Yes.
Excellent. Moving on to appointments. Those are pretty straightforward and listed out. We have, moving down to number 3, the FY23 budget. Anna and Adam, I will turn it over to you.
Great, thanks, Casey. So hi, everybody. Good to see everyone again. Thanks for joining us tonight. I know while I was out, Adam gave a great presentation to you all looking at the FY23 budget. Just as an update with the timeline of all of that, we had our public enterprise hearing with the Finance Committee last Thursday night. There were some really great questions from the Finance Committee members, primarily looking at our fund balance and the issues that we are seeing with our losses each year. But all in all, a really, really great meeting. It is recorded, so if anybody is interested in going back and hearing some of the questions that the Finance Committee had, that should be on the YouTube channel for the Minuteman Media Network. But otherwise, we are charging forward and we'll be prepared for town meeting on May 1st. Any questions about any of the budget or any feedback that anybody has? Great. That's what I have.
Excellent. Anna, we will move along to BD facility rental application, and it looks like we have a document that was included in the agenda materials. Would you mind sharing the screen so we can review that, please?
Sure, let me pull it up.
Thank you.
Oops. Okay. Yeah. Screen share. Can everybody see that okay?
Yep.
Great. So what we're looking at here, if you recall, a couple of months ago, we looked at formalizing the facility rental applications for primarily the Hunt Recreation Center and for the field reservations. We've been renting out those facilities as well as the BD Center for a number of years, but haven't had a really standard document that we've used to streamline rentals, to make it more customer friendly, and to make it work with our current registration and booking software. So that's what this document is. You'll notice it's very similar information that we have on the other facility rental applications that the commission previously has approved. And the biggest difference is, of course, I'm going to actually show it in its final version. It's a little bit easier to follow everything, I feel like. Is just the reservation spaces at the pools. And I'll let Adam speak a little bit to the research that he did when determining the rental rates. As we did for the hunt rentals and the field rentals, we did reach out to other entities that had pools for rentals to make sure that our rates were reasonable as compared to others in the industry. So I'll pass it over to Adam real quick to speak about that.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, so this is kind of part of my charge when Anna was away, was looking at formalizing this document, but also formalizing pricing. So what I did was I reached out to all of the aquatic facility recreation departments in the state and used that information. We only heard from Atkinson, which is in Lincoln or Sudbury, excuse me, for their rates. And then also what I did was I took an average of what we're currently renting for our pools for some of our, one-off here and there rentals. And basically, so the bottom line, which is tier 4, is basically the average of what those rental rates were for all of our outside vendors, local teams, whatever it may be. And then kind of moved up from there to give discounts based on pretty similar to our rentals, where, if you're a Concord-based organization, you get a better rate than somebody who's not. So that's kind of the data that made the decision on the pricing for those rates.
And Adam also looked at our current rentals and what we were charging them. And this falls right in line with, on average, what outside groups are paying. The biggest piece that you'll notice as well, like Adam said, we have the tiered structure as similar to the field and other facility forms, including, free rentals for the town of Concord departments, including Concord Carlisle School. Right now, they come in and use the pool for their swim team each winter. So those pieces are built in. Let's see, scroll down a little farther. This just goes into general rules and regulations. Again, some are very similar to the other document, just with, the ability for us to not issue permits, make sure that certain things are not coming onto town property, supervision requirements, things like that. Cancellation policy. This one is really important with any pool rental. As you can imagine, it requires additional staff potentially to be available. So we might need extra lifeguards or extra help from the custodial team. So we do have a 48-hour cancellation policy. Supervision, all applicants must be with somebody 18 years of age or older. And then we go into the required ratios. So what we're hoping for tonight, certainly welcome any feedback or suggestions from the commission. And then Adam has been doing a really great job putting a calendar together for our meetings for the year, where we plan to look at these documents with you all, review how many people we have as renters for the year, any feedback we've received, and make any recommended changes with your approval annually, which is why we have these pieces built in now on this document. So hoping it's something we can get you guys involved in a little bit more, again, with finding new rental groups, understanding what rental rates cost, things like that. Any questions or feedback? We're hoping tonight, if everybody's comfortable with it, that we could do a vote so we can implement this form sooner than later. And Matt has his hand raised.
Yeah, I was just curious that is it by charter or by tradition that the swim teams are not charged for their use of the pools? I mean, realizing that we would just be taking money out of the left pocket and putting it in the right pocket if we charge them. It just from the balance sheet of the BD Center, it might make sense. I'm just curious about that policy.
Sure. So I don't have the documents right in front of me, but when the agreement was put in place for the facility to be constructed, and Casey might have some insight on this too, but it was agreed upon at the time that the school would have unlimited access to the facility without having any fees. It is school land, but it was fundraised by Concord residents to build the actual structure. So it was the agreement that was written in at the time, but being over 15 years ago, it certainly is something that potentially needs to be looked at again. Adam helped me and did the math out of
Well, and what percentage of the hours, the available hours, are reasonable hours are consumed by
Sure.
the school team activities.
Adam, do you have that email quickly available? I can find it. He did the math out for us just last week looking at this.
Yeah, so essentially the amount of usage during, basically we're talking swim team, and also they run a lifeguard class as well. So on average, for that time frame, it's typically done in the winter months. So from Thanksgiving through January, it's about, off the top of my head, I can't find the document, but about 12 to 14 hours a week. And we basically tabulated using this chart here, how much it would cost if they were, let's just say, non-Concord high school affiliated. And it was about $25,000 to $26,000 if it was an outside organization that would come and charge, or that we would charge. So to give you an idea.
Okay, but that's actually interesting, because it's not a make or break by itself. I mean, certainly that would be a nice chunk of money to have, but it's not like it would change the entire balance sheet, you know?
Yeah, we wouldn't, I think, but also by not charging them, we're giving them that space for free when we could charge other organizations to come in and rent that space.
Oh,
as well.
absolutely, yes, I understand, but yeah, the opportunity
Yeah.
cost is not as big as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, it's not the $400,000 difference, that we're looking for at all. But certainly, like Adam just said, it eliminates the ability for us to run programs and do other external rentals during those prime times. It also, during meets and such, displaces membership, and everybody's always very flexible and kind about it. But there's opportunities in those time slots. And again, not that we're hoping to kick the school out. It's nice to have the kids over there. It's just something to explore potentially as another.
It does make you wonder whether these rates are high enough, though, because it's kind of prime time, a lot of hours, and it still doesn't add up to all that much.
Correct. Yeah, and that's the sort of discussion, that we can have tonight and we can have in future years too. Like perhaps the pool does need prime time tier, as well as all these, resident versus non-resident sorts of tiers. We don't do that for the other rental forms right now, but it's certainly, as I'm learning the BD Center a little bit more in detail right now, certainly something to consider.
Do you tend to sell out during prime times? Well in advance, or
For
like for prime time? I mean, that would be another reason to say that there's clearly a need for a tiered approach, is if you have some hours where it's just booked the instant that the hours are offered, and others where you just never seem to book anybody.
Yeah. Yeah, and we're not, really actively advertising the rental at the BD Center right now, just because of the worry of displacing members. But we do have certain groups that have been coming to us for a number of years, and we're gaining new rentals. As I mentioned recently, we have a rental coming in with a swim team that's been displaced. They're going to take a non-prime time, 7:30 to 9 p.m. Monday through Friday, using 6 pool lanes from May through the end of July. And that's going to be about $15,000 to have that really late night time slot.
Mhm.
So
Okay.
yeah, there's definitely a need for kids after school to come and use pools, and we're really the only show in the area.
Jen has her hand up.
Sorry. I just had a question about the cancellation policy.
Sure.
I don't understand the big picture about how cancellations has worked in the past. 48 hours seems pretty generous. But again, if they're like a small scale event, then maybe 48 hours isn't a big deal. But if it's a large event that you're hosting, I feel like the preparation that in the staff requirements, it might just maybe like a week would be more in line. Again, I don't know what it's looked like in the past. Maybe you've never had cancellations, or
No,
just curious.
that's a good suggestion. Yeah. And I would need to talk a little bit more in detail with our aquatic instructor to know offhand if there are a lot of groups that she's had to do this for. I know one of our rentals recently, of course, because of the pandemic, they put their visits on hold. So we're either going to be refunding them for, I think it's been about 4 or 5 weeks, or they'll try and make it up at the end. But yeah, it displaces a potential other rental group, for.
Yeah, so I was just curious if like all the cancellations were due to, weather, which you don't know, until like right before, or maybe COVID, because something like that. Then I understand that, but okay.
Yeah, and to give you some background too, Jen. So when I was going over the rates for all the rentals that gave me those numbers, most of the rental agreements were 48 hours to give cancellation. So that was the number that, but more than happy to change that number.
Okay.
So yeah, so just to give you some background.
Okay, well, that's helpful for me. Okay, thanks.
Anna and Adam, I think this is a really important annual exercise to go through. And to my knowledge, with the BD Center, certainly, we haven't really dug into this previously. Is that correct?
Very correct.
So this really is an indicator towards a recalibration in the management of the BD Center with an understanding where things are geared towards in terms of the deficits that need to be covered and where we are with our membership fees. Matt, you bring up a great point about what does revisiting the relationship between the CCHS swim teams and whatnot, what does that bring in for revenue? What does that bring in for opportunity and whatnot? Because that would, I imagine, be on the table moving forward, refiguring out some of these original agreements that were put in place when CC Pools turned over the BD Center to the town. I would say that it may make sense, Anna, to look at that original agreement, because I know that there are other things that are in place with it too that impact membership fees. And I know Pete is not on tonight, but he was one of the, I think one of the chairs of CC Pools. So he would be intimately aware of those and probably have some strong feelings about it. But it may be time to, as a commission, evaluate those, reevaluate what they are, and look at what the cost benefit is. And also, you know, if there are agreements in there that must be honored going forward, just acknowledging that and reviewing, because I think this is on the table for discussion in a larger venue going forward. But I will say that this research and this information, Adam, I know this was one of your main tasks, is extremely helpful and really going in the right direction of sort of more consistent, solid management of the BD Center and fiduciary oversight. So thank you for your work on it.
Thanks for that feedback, Casey. And certainly, you know, this is the discussion with the school is a much larger conversation with the town manager and other players. So certainly on my to-do list, we'll call it for the summer when it's a little bit quieter at BD to start exploring that.
Anna, you and Adam, just if there are other initiatives you guys are working on at BD, I'm sure sort of as a team, everything's on the table to be evaluated. Are there other things that are coming down the immediate sort of this upcoming quarter that you're looking to put more research efforts into, along with things like facility fees?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was going to talk about it in a little bit, but just so everybody is aware, Andy Dutton is out on leave until the end of May. So I'm up at the BD Center in his office Monday, Wednesday, Friday, helping to pick up the pieces where he left off until he is back, hopefully at the end of May. So just some framework on that. But yeah, there's a lot of things that we're looking at, including staffing. So as many industries right now, there are a lot of short-staffed positions, I'll call it, never to the point where the facility isn't operated safely or anything like that, but we desperately need more lifeguards. So we're reviewing and have worked with the Human Resources Department to update the miscellaneous compensation schedule to support higher hourly rates for lifeguards. We'll be looking at all of our lifeguards that we currently have, making sure they're at the right rates to keep them on our team, to keep people there with us, and also to attract new guards. So we're looking at other opportunities that we can offer to lifeguards. If you have watched the news recently, you might have seen that the city of Boston is offering $1,000 stipend to anybody that will work for them as a lifeguard through Labor Day. And that's just something that we can't afford to do. So we're looking at all the other great assets that we have to offer folks, including free BD memberships, discounts to programs, that sort of stuff. So I'm working with the entire BD team to explore those options and to try and get our summer staffing in place for the BD Center, for White Pond, and for Emerson Pool. Additionally, we've had some ongoing issues with cleaning. The company that we work with has been able to send me a proposal, hopefully to get a female custodian on staff Monday through Friday a little bit earlier in the day. Right now, we're forced to close the women's locker room for about 15 minutes in the morning to do a quick cleaning of the locker room. And we recognize that that's displacing female members, if even only for 15 minutes. So working with the cleaning company to try and come up with a better solution, and they've been great. Additionally, we are looking to formalize and better advertise our small group personal training options and personal training in general. So we recently were given permission to start running small group personal training at the BD Center, which is a whole new sales avenue for us. It allows people like me who may not want to go and do personal training on their own to go with a friend or with a spouse and get those same benefits of personalized attention at the BD Center. So it's a great new opportunity for our trainers, a great new opportunity for new or potential past members to come in, bring a friend, and get a specialized workout in. So we've really been exploring those avenues. Again, with the budget in mind, all of these things is on the forefront. Additionally, we just continue to look at our expenses and our overhead. So the facility itself is extremely expensive to run. A lot of the equipment is still original to the building, even though the team has done an excellent job getting things replaced and trying to stay on top of it. Just sometimes feels like the minute you get one thing fixed, the next thing is needing to be fixed. So working with TJ specifically in the facilities department to better anticipate some of the needed upgrades versus having to be so reactive. And all those things come with a pretty hefty price tag. So looking at funding options for those pieces. So just to name a few, those are the first priorities that I'm digging into.
That's very helpful. So thank you. And I know we can dig in further that later on in the agenda. For this particular piece right now, just as a quick overview, Adam has done, it sounds like, fairly extensive research on this. And these prices are based on sort of equivalent or nearly equivalent facilities nearby. My ask to the Recreation Commission members are, do folks feel that they need more time on this or have more questions for Anna or Adam? Okay, are we ready to make a motion to vote on this? Okay, I will make a motion to approve the facility fee schedule for the BD Center. Sorry, Paul, you're on mute.
Can't read my lips. I'll second.
I could read your lips, but I don't think that is procedurally okay, but thank you.
I officially second.
Roll call, Casey Atkins. Yes. Jen Lutz.
Yes.
Paul Bohm.
Yes.
James Howard.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Anna and Adam, for your work on that. Looks like we also have up the cancellation policy to be reviewed and voted on. Thank you.
So this document also is one of those items that will be on our annual review calendar. Since I've been in Concord, we have not reviewed this document. So figured it was time to take a peek. And with the way things have been for the last couple of years, we recognize that there's a couple of things that we needed to add. And Adam, again, drafted this up for us, which is great. So the biggest things to note on this document, and Adam can speak to the specific adjustments, but with COVID, once we return to regular operations, the buildings are open, the public was welcome. We were feeling between a rock and a hard place when people were still just not comfortable coming back. and absolutely can appreciate the worry and are sensitive to, you know, people's different health and home life and things like that. So more often than not, we have been providing a refund if it was requested. But we want to make note, you know, in this document now that if people just do not want to attend for any reason, documented illness or not, and it's within that 7-day program period, we would not be providing a refund. So again, you know, heaven forbid a pandemic come back or something similar happen. We just needed to add that in because that was just a new recognition that we had. The other piece was the adjustment, as Jen was speaking to cancellations, and maybe pull this up real quick. 7 calendar days before the start of the program, we will not provide a refund. And for same reasons, like Jen mentioned, for the BD Center rentals, we have staff in place, we have minimum numbers to meet. And if somebody pulls out last minute, it can really affect the whole program. So Adam, do you want to speak to any of the other changes, including some of the program specific policies?
Oh yeah. So to give you some background, so a lot of this is what we already do. It's just put in different buckets. So to give you some background, so back currently our cancellation policy is if there is a snow-related event where we need to shut down the building. As of right now, our policy says that we will not give a refund, and you know, especially in the BD Center specifically, but in the era of good customer service, in my head. Especially because all of our snow events this past couple of months happened on Fridays. So Fridays were particularly affected, and that's kind of where this change came from. So that was kind of one of those things that I looked at. So I moved weather from no refunds to a full or partial refund or a makeup will be made to the cancellation policy up top. And also power outages were part of the no refund part. And again, something, yes, out of our control, but in the era of good customer service, we want to try to make up those classes as best we can or give a refund if we can. The other ones that we've kind of added or edited based on our current policy is a documented medical illness that prevents participation in the program. There was no clear line in our cancellation policy that outlined something like if you're signed up for a soccer program and you break your ankle before the program starts. There was no, you know, we had been honoring those in the past, but there was no clear, you know, statement in the cancellation policy that included that. And then also in regards to the amount of days. So we were talking about this particularly with our February vacation program is, you know, people had canceled very last minute. So we wanted to have a clear black and white, you know, 7 calendar days before the program starts. We can give you a refund, but anything less than 7 calendar days, we wouldn't, because to Anna's point, you know, we hire staff, we hire, or we, you know, book field trips for a certain particular number of people. So if those people decide not to show up and they get their money back, we lose money. So that's kind of where those things came from. So that's kind of where this is coming from, is that we just wanted to clear black and white. This is what gets you a refund or a makeup, and this is what doesn't. So there's no questions moving forward.
Can I ask a question about that? It says a full or partial refund. There could be a big difference in how much money you're refunded, I'm assuming, depending on the program. Is there, I guess you want to just have that, you make the, you know, on a case-by-case basis, you make that decision. It could give someone leeway to kind of push you on that and say, oh, I want a full refund.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and that's why that,
Yep.
sorry, Jen, the last paragraph of that basically says every situation outside of what's mentioned above will be considered on a case-by-case basis as well, because we know that, you know, a kid could be healthy and fine for the first 2 weeks of a program, but then break their ankle and can't do soccer anymore. So we have that in there. So yeah, we understand that we're trying to make this as black and white as possible, but we know that it won't be 100% black and white. So yes, so that's why we put that in there at the bottom. So
Okay.
It's a good point, though, Jen.
I have a couple of questions on here. So let's talk about COVID related matters. Hopefully they won't occur. That's not included. I mean, if the town or the Board of Health decides to close something down, that's not included in this list. I understand the discretionary part of this. If somebody just doesn't feel comfortable, that doesn't qualify. But I think there should be something about sort of a town-wide health emergency or something like that.
Good point.
Yeah, that's good actually, to some semblance of a closure, a town-wide closure that would affect our operation. That's a good one.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I don't understand the old number 7. So this is if the program is canceled. What's the cancellation notice?
If the person submits a request to cancel from the class, I believe is the spirit of that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
So essentially, if somebody more than 7 calendar days before the program starts canceled, they'll get a refund. Less than 7 calendar days, they will not.
Got it. So I think it should be a little bit more explicit there. And the last thing I had, have you considered credits versus refunds?
Yeah, we've avoided credits really because it's a bookkeeping nightmare to roll those over year to year. So we historically have not done credits on people's accounts, and that's a department choice.
Yeah, I understand it. Well, makes it a little hard. If you can get a refund for cancellation, that's sort of, it's a low bar. If there's a credit for cancellation, somebody might think twice about it. I just mentioned, I understand the bookkeeping part of that, so I'll defer to you.
Okay, thanks. It's good to talk it out though, for sure, and make sure that people are aware of that. We've just decided to avoid those, but certainly we'll work with customers best we can if they would like to transfer to another program or there's something of comparable value. We have done that before. So a participant must request a cancellation at least 7 calendar days before the program starts. To clear up that.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a question for you, and I think really it's covered in the all situations outside of the ones mentioned above will be considered on a case-by-case basis. I think you cover that. But I'm curious about some of your programs, some of your adaptive programs specifically, where, you know, I certainly have been a parent who's like, yeah, let me sign my kid up for this. And then it's like an absolute like nightmare, but it's sort of tied into maybe their diagnosis as to why it's just not a fit for them. I do think that sentence covers it, but I'm just wondering what you run into, like if you have a lot of cancellations from programs like that and it's an issue, or if it tends to be something that's fairly reasonably worked out.
Sure. I feel like that statement, you know, would make me comfortable making decisions to refund folks. So typically in the inclusion programs, we do intake assessments and have conversations ahead of time to try and get a good idea of what the participants' needs might be to assure that it's a good fit, but certainly would never fault anybody if we all thought it was going to be a great idea and it wasn't. That's one of those situations outside of the ones above, you know, and without pointing out disability directly within the cancellation policy, if everybody's comfortable or has suggestions on other ways to word that sort of situation. But I think Adam or I could make the decision with our programmers to refund without it. Oh, you're muted, Case.
I don't think you need to word it because I think that sentence gives you the coverage that you need. I think better, my question is better framed as, does that happen often? Or is it sort of on a one-off and it's easily sort of addressed on a case-by-case basis?
More of a one-off for sure. Maybe once a summer, specifically, that's our largest inclusion program within all of our operations. So maybe once a summer, there might be a participant that might not be our program might not be a great fit for a participant, I should say. So, and those are situations where we exhaust all options with support and opportunity before everybody comes to that decision. So I'd call it more of a one-off.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, further questions? I would like to make a motion to approve the cancellation policy for the Concord Recreation Department.
I will second.
Thank you, Paul. Roll call, Casey Atkins, yes. Jim Howard,
Yes.
Paul Bone,
Yes.
Jen Lutz.
Yes.
Excellent.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay. Article 16 in the town warrant. We're getting into town meeting season.
So I'll speak to this quickly. This is more just informational more than anything. There's no need
I
for
missed
anybody to, vote on anything or anything. But so Article 16 in the town warrant is basically putting a moratorium for 5 years to install new turf in town. I'm not going to bore you with all the specifics, but feel free to review that. And I just thought it'd be important as a Recreation Commission, and Kate Hodges recommended we just be aware of that, as it potentially may relate to us in the next 5 years in regards to new fields and stuff like that. But just review that article that, again, just puts a moratorium on installation of new turf fields in town for 5 years. So I don't have any specifics about how it works or anything like that, but I just wanted to kind of put it in the radar. So
Sorry to interrupt. I believe there's already a moratorium in place.
okay.
I believe. Matt, does that sound right?
That is correct. In fact, it's already been extended once, and this would be another extension.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so just again, as you
And then, as far as I understand, the only new playing field that's planned at this point is at the middle school, where natural turf has already been committed. So I don't know if there's any practical impact of this. And, it may be that people would expect the Recreation Commission to weigh in on this, but there's no obligation to do so. But I know as a select board member, I'm going to be asked to. So, your input would be helpful.
I think that, in terms of weighing in on this particular article, maybe there's no obligation, as you mentioned. For the strategic plan, I think that this does warrant a conversation in general. And perhaps, and I know for the warrant article, I would imagine there are citizen groups that are putting together quite a bit of information about it, about the environmental impact, about the impact on players, sort of the pros and cons going both ways. Personally, I am not a fan of artificial turf. That's my personal opinion for a number of reasons. I played on it. I have more friends than I can count who blew their knees out on it. And I don't think that it is a sustainable option. And I would imagine, Matt, that it doesn't fall within the sustainability guidelines for the town in terms of non-permeable surface area.
A question on repair. If the high school turf field got damaged in a storm, would the moratorium pertain to repairs or replacement?
the high school is exclusive of this moratorium. That's the only thing that I know outside of that, is that it's exclusive of those fields. So they can be repaired.
Private fields are also not included. So that leaves very few things that would be covered today. Yeah. In fact, I can't think of any.
I mean, I think, looking forward to a strategic plan, not that we have one, I think not using artificial turf at least has wear and tear benefits on the human body. Health effects, could be debated, but I think it's probably a good direction. I mean, health effects on the people who are exposed to turf as opposed to people who blow out their knees, Casey.
Yeah, no, I thank you, Paul. Appreciate it. Okay, if there are no further comments on that, we can move on to number 7, the strategic plan.
Great. I will share my screen again. I emailed everybody the draft a little bit earlier tonight. Sorry for that late email. Okay, so Peter and Paul have done an excellent job taking the charge on drafting a request for a proposal. So as a quick recap, we submitted an application for $75,000 from the CPC to fund a consultant that would help us create and update the recreation facility strategic plan, which was last published in 2014. If those funds are approved at town meeting, we do want to really hit the ground running and get a proposal out there to solicit a consultant. So we've started to draft what that proposal might look like. I'm sure that you all did not have a chance to read this yet. So really, I'll pass it to Paul to have a little bit of a discussion, but I just wanted to point out what we're trying to do in this document is really start to conceptualize what we're asking this consultant to do. The project is very, very big, and we only have a certain amount of money to do it. So we do have to be pretty specific with what we're looking for. A lot of the information that we have in this document, we've discussed as a commission before, and then I was able to find some really great examples from our past RFP as well as other communities' RFPs to help put into words exactly what we're looking for here. So I'm certainly not going to read all of this to you, but Paul, I'll pass it over to you if you want to talk a little bit about the process that we've gone through.
Yeah, I think the three major themes and maybe the three major differences between this plan and the old plan is that I think we really want to have a real bona fide needs assessment as opposed to a kind of a survey, and that needs assessment involving multiple demographics across the town. And we recommended, for example, that the consultant target, a survey or information that has at least 25% of the households in town, which I think is ambitious, but as opposed to 7%. So I think getting input from various groups, I think it's important for the consultant to use its experience in recommending how to do that. We can sort of advise them on what the groups might be, and the groups not only are the groups within the public demographic, but groups within other town departments. And I think the other thing that makes us a little bit different, we advocated, and I think that the application and the CPC and select board interpret this as a town-wide recreational assets assessment, which is different from the department's facilities. So it starts with the department's facilities, but kind of moves beyond that. And that involves other town entities and other stakeholders, but to define recreational assets more broadly. So those are the two major things. And then the time frames, the previous plan had, I think, 3 time frames. To be realistic, I think there are only 2 time frames. There's sort of the short-term time frame, which is maybe the next few years, and then there's a longer-term time frame. To plan any differently like that is probably unrealistic. So right now, it's those kind of 2 time frames, and the last part of it, we would ask the consultant, based on the development of the plan, the needs assessment, to put together some kind of capital planning, which could be used as a template for capital requests within town and other financial investments. As I say, it's a template. It's not a formal application for any capital funds. So those 4 things are a little bit different than the previous plan, and I think it makes it a little bit more ambitious and expensive plan. And the other ambitious part is that the time schedule. I think Annie, you stretched that a little. I think Pete and I were a little bit more aggressive. But I think you stretched that to a year, which was probably realistic. But as soon as we get going on this, because the old plan is 2014, and which relied on old information, so there's no code red emergency on this. But I think moving along is important. I do have a couple of comments, but I can stop there and kind of address, at least the conceptual idea that we proposed with Anna, and then, but I do have some specific comments on this. Can I just dump those on you quickly?
Yeah, if anybody else wanted to speak to what Paul just talked about? Otherwise, we can just dive right in.
Sounds good.
Okay. In talking to, I think it should be a little bit explicit what we should direct the consultant who exactly they need to talk to in town in terms of the other departments. And I think you did start that a little bit, but I think you have the Conservation Commission, when it's really the NRC. And I think there should be DPW. You did exclude the schools, and I was wondering why, because right at the beginning, you state that properties that are not include school gyms and school buildings. I understand that, but later on, there's a consultation with the school, with the department. So it's a little bit contradictory there. We might want to think through that. There are, given this Concord Middle School development and that close coordination in conversation developing the gym, and and of course the outdoor facilities of the schools are used. So I think just think through that a little bit. Second comment, the documents 1 through 4 is on page 2. I think these are the same documents that appeared early, and man, they're old documents. Maybe they're oldies but goodies, but some of those are like way old. And Vision Concord is definitely an important one, the previous recreation plan. But I wonder if there are any more recent relevant documents that we could throw into the mix, because a lot of them are really old.
Yeah. Does anybody know of any others off the top of their head? These were the ones that I'm most familiar with and have referred to. Anybody know of any?
They may be the only ones.
They might be. I can do a little more digging though.
Would Kate know of others?
I'm sure I meet with her on Tuesdays, so I can put that on my Kate list for tomorrow.
And I have just a few others. So task 2 in here, it says outreach meetings, but I really think task 2 is a needs assessment. I think outreach meetings are a vehicle for the needs assessment, but the way that reads right now, it's sort of, regular meetings. And I don't think we were thinking of regular meetings. We were thinking of sort of several outreach workshops or forums. There might be other meetings as well, but I don't want to exclude those. So I think task 2 should really be sort of the needs assessment, because I think that's at the heart of the information that we need to gather here. And to that end, and I think task 3, you might ask the consultant to actually provide a proposal for how they're going to do the needs assessment. Let's say, think about it, give you a deliverable to make sure that you think they have it covered and as a deliverable. And then last but not least, task 4, I think, is the strategic land development. And it's written as conceptual recreation facilities improvement plans, which reads a little bit different than a strategic plan. It almost reads like, let's take a look at our facilities and see how to improve them, as opposed to let's start at a higher level and see what strategic plan is. So I know some of these were carried over. So, and I do know this is a very early draft. So, but it's a really good start. Those are my comments for now.
Great, good feedback. Thanks, Paul. Going back to the question, I don't see I'm gonna scroll down to see if anyone else has a question. So going back to the discussion about the schools and the school spaces, I know we've talked briefly about that, and again, this is something that we need to talk about a lot more before we finalize anything. But recognizing we do have limited funding, I think we will have to condense somewhere somehow. We don't book spaces at the schools ourselves, so we wouldn't run programs at the schools or anything like that. I think it's absolutely worth noting in this plan the resources that are at the schools, gyms, fields, playgrounds, all of that sort of stuff. But in terms of providing future thinking plans and improvements to those spaces, I was thinking that we would leave that off. Again, recognize the facilities, but not include that in our consultant's charge necessarily, but totally open to feedback.
I understand. I was thinking of something quite specific. Matt, maybe you can help me here. So when at some point Peabody is going to be up for grabs, maybe that's not the right word. Strategically, the town, the select board has to decide what's going to come of Peabody. So I'd like the recreation department to be part of that strategic conversation. So that's, it will cease to be a school asset, yes, but it could be a recreational asset.
I see this piece.
Or that could be one use among many at the site. Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah, I understand.
Mhm.
I think that's a good pickup. Paul, I also, I know that like school playgrounds are used a lot. And I do agree that you have to figure out where to draw the line somewhere, since it can just really get super expansive. To
Mhm.
that end, I wonder if, when you scroll down in the needs assessment part with schools, you have the athletic directors and the gym teachers. Would it make sense to include the facility directors?
Ooh, absolutely. Good idea.
That they would be the ones who would be, for example, playgrounds, they would have to have the training to do playground inspections. And they would be able to give a state of, where things stand there.
Good
The other,
idea.
Anna, going further up into the first part. You have ADA compliance, sorry, in that paragraph, if you go down lower. The list below identifies.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. ADA compliance, could we also include universal design?
Mhm.
And Anna, you can probably describe universal design to everyone better than I can, but it's sort of an enhanced, not really enhanced ADA, but it's sort of what are some basic improvements we can do that help some students, but will have a positive impact on, or some people have a positive impact on all people.
Yep, that's a great idea, Casey. This section, again, I just started trying to figure out what we did want this person to be looking at all the facilities. So that's where this came from. I don't know if anyone noticed too, I forget what section it's even in, but I saw in some other communities, RFPs, they specifically stated the facilities that would be included, and then they added a clause that said plus 10 other or 20 other conservation spaces or town-owned spaces. And I thought that might be a nice thing, again, recognizing we can't include or evaluate every single asset in perfect detail, but perhaps we can hear from the needs assessment and discussions what people are seeing as 5 to 10 additional assets. Paul, I know you brought up a couple of times the access points in the river, in the boat launches, and the opportunities that the rivers present. And I think that's a really, really interesting thing to think about. And I'm not sure if there is a lot of information on the use of that sort of asset in any other plan right now. So that might be one of those 10, for example. Forget where I put it in here, but I saw that from someone else's and stole it. It would be interesting to add that.
And when we got together, I think we also, Pete and I talked a little bit about benchmarking other towns. I'm not sure exactly what we meant by that, but it was sort of looking at what other towns are what are we missing anything that other towns are doing. You just, the consultant should probably review strategic plans from other towns to get some ideas of, to maybe seed some of the needs assessment. I don't know, but there's some sort of comparison or benchmarking or information gathering from towns around us.
I thought I had that in here somewhere. I'm just gonna make a little note so it marks it up. Make sure that that's in there. I think that's a really good point. We want to see where Concord is as compared to our neighbors and some of the other places in the state. So I think that's really important to have them do in the background this time.
Can I ask a quick question? How is this advertised to consultants? I'm wondering if Lexington had a great strategic plan put together? Can I see who did theirs and then, send this to them? Or is it just posted on like the town website?
Sure. So there's a really formal process that a document like this goes through with notifications. And you can reach out to a company and let them know that a proposal has been posted, and then they're welcome to apply. So yes, we certainly could share this with a company if we'd like them to submit a plan, and hopefully they would, but it's posted in the papers, and there's a variety of different areas and ways that it gets shared. So consultants and different groups that work for the consultants find these opportunities.
Thanks.
Mhm.
And another comment in terms of the outreach folks. You can scroll down.
Oh.
Or needs assessment, thank you, sorry. Could we also put on here the Commission on Disability in the town? And perhaps the CPAC?
Good point.
Do we,
Council on Aging, maybe?
Great point.
Anna, do we want to separate a needs assessment from consultations? I'm thinking you would go to select board to do a needs assessment, but you want to keep, help me here, Matt. You want to keep key stakeholders in the loop, but then not maybe formally part of the needs assessment, which is more of the public and the stakeholders in the. I'm a little confused when consultation needs, where they overlap and when one starts and ends. Do you understand my confusion?
No, sorry, I don't know. Are you looking in this section?
Well, I am. So in the needs assessment, you really want to find out what the public needs, what the stakeholders needs.
Mhm.
And so who are the stakeholders? It's certainly the public, but mostly the public, but the Board of Selectmen, as part of the general public, they're a stakeholder and they need to be consulted, as do some of these commissions. But are they part of the needs assessment? Or the finance committee, for example, they don't feel like they're part of the needs assessment. They need to be consultant. So I don't know. It feels a little confusing.
Yeah. And
Well, actually, if I was going to bid on this, right, I would want a more formulaic, like, okay, I'm going to hold 2 public meetings and I'm going to have, this and that, right?
Yeah.
In other words, right now it's kind of open-ended. And maybe the consultant would bring a methodology and they would propose something, but I think that we could just also outline at a minimum, we expect this,
Mhm.
But
I
yeah, I
think-
do agree that you probably wouldn't be sitting down with the select board, except for at the end exclusively. We might be part of the public meeting.
Yeah, and I think my brain when I was typing those in was the select board, the finance committee, some of these other really involved committees of residents are so involved with so many different conversations that you guys, the commissions or the groups may have information that doesn't come up at one of the public meetings because that user group doesn't attend or they don't provide the feedback. I just think of, Matt, some of the things that you've been able to guide me on just based on different conversations you've had as a select board member. It's an interesting perspective to have. And again, if those people don't show up at a meeting and then we miss that piece of feedback. So certainly see both sides, but I want to point that out too. There's a lot of information in the brains of the select board and other large groups.
Yeah. I think let's think this through a little bit more. When it says regularly scheduled meetings with the general public, that's different than sort of several specific workshops or or forums. I don't see regularly scheduled meetings with the public on this. I see several, as Matt mentioned, I see 2 or 3 or 4
Mhm.
workshops with different groups, maybe different parts of town at different times of day, or just to make sure you get all the people, as
Mhm.
many people as we need.
Good point.
But I wouldn't call them regularly scheduled meetings.
Okay. Get rid of that. I'm gonna get rid of that. General public meetings. Great. Let's scroll down just so everyone can see the next sections as well. This is where we have that target of 25% of the household participation in some capacity. Like Paul said, honestly, not really sure if that's reasonable or not, but certainly it would be a great goal.
How many households in town do we know?
I mean, when we mail out our brochure, we're in about
7,000.
I'm sorry, how many?
7,000, if I'm not mistaken. I could be totally wrong, but I feel like
That
that's how much
sounds
we
in the
send out.
ballpark. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there are like 6,000 tax paying households and then, you know, you have rentals. So sounds about right.
Yeah, it's ambitious, and but you know, if the consultant only does 19%, we'd probably be happy.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Scroll down a little more.
And I do think this regular reporting to you, Anna, you're just keeping, you know, keeping track of what they're doing. That's going to be really important because it's you know, it's complicated to touch base with all these people, and consultants can need some direction.
Yeah, absolutely. There has to be one person as the main go-to for sure, and I'm happy to take that role on. Down here, just speaks to the site visits, the concept plans.
Yeah, this reads a little bit like, you know, facilities improvement plan as opposed to a strategic plan. So let's read through this offline. I can come back with some
Sure.
suggestions.
Sorry about that. I appear to have kicked my router out of the plug and it went down.
No problem. So this is certainly a really big project, nothing that we're finalizing tonight, but my hope is that we can just look at it every meeting, get everybody really familiar with it, keep getting feedback, you know, as you read it after the meeting or the next meeting, and keep tweaking it. So come the start of fiscal year 23, we have a good starting place in a document that we can bring to the town manager's office and, you know, hopefully get out at the start of the fiscal year. So any other feedback on it for tonight? Anybody have? Scroll down a little bit farther. Okay.
Anna, thank you for this. And Paul and Pete, thank you guys so much for the work that you've put into this so far. I think we're off to a good start here. So Anna, this is a great launching point to be ready to pull the trigger on it if the funding's approved. So thank you.
No problem.
Okay, moving on to department updates, the BD Center. And I know you already gave some updates earlier on. So
Not much beyond what I've already spoke about. One other thing to note, April will be the 16th anniversary of the BD Center. So keep your eyes peeled for some really great events and challenges that we'll be having at the BD Center. Adam oversees our social media, so we'll be posting those opportunities on our website and on social media. So come on by the BD Center next month, meet the team, see everything that's happening. It's a really great environment. Coming from Hunt and now sitting at BD 3 days a week, I really love the atmosphere and the hub and the excitement that's in those halls every day. So come on up if you haven't been yet. Sure. And I'll leave it at that. Adam also made that really great chart that was attached. The Excel document looks like this. It has the different program areas with some basic announcements. We're thinking that might be a nice way to get things summarized on paper, but not spend a ton of time each night just giving you basic updates. So you can refer there for program specific updates at BD. And that's what I have.
Great. Any questions from the commission members on BD? All right, moving on to Hunt.
So again, so that new reporting structure is kind of a malleable document. So if you feel like there's more information that you want from that document, please let me know. I just thought to streamline all of our departments and what's happening in one document, I thought would be useful before our meetings. You can review and ask more, finite questions. So outside of that, we are rolling along, with a lot of stuff going on. So April 15th, which is a Friday, we have our egg hunt. That'll be at Memorial Field next to BD, where there will be, of course, an egg hunt, and also we'll have a special bunny visitor at the BD Center for those that have families, or if you pass the message along. We have an event on our Facebook page for that if you have any questions. And then kind of Anna alluded a little bit to it, is that before Anna got back, I was focusing with fiscal 23 is focusing on more of a firm marketing plan, internal and external for BD. So April, you'll see a lot of these events for BD. So I'm really excited about kind of how things have rolled out. We finalized everything today. So you'll see it on Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff. So that's kind of really exciting for me because I feel like the team's really invested. We're really looking forward to that to see how that kind of rolls out. And another thing to notice that's kind of been slowly kicking up is that we are offering a fitness event called the Dip and Dash at BD, which is on May 15th. So essentially it's a swim and run. It's open from ages 5 all the way up to adults. All the information is on our website. We've been blasting it on our Facebook page. It's an event on our Facebook page. So if you have anybody interested in a fitness challenge in May, it's a way to get connected there. You do not need to be a member to do the Dip and Dash. So that's something to be excited about. And that's kind of it for bigger events. We had the Shamrock Ball last weekend. Last weekend was really great. We had about 400 people attend. So that was super awesome. Awesome event. It was nice to get back to our quote unquote normal. So that was really cool. That's kind of all the big updates that I have outside of what's already on that reporting sheet. So again, if you see that new sheet coming out, if there's some information that you want in there, I'm more than happy to fill you in or add that to that sheet for our supervisors and other people that oversee those particular departments to fill in. So any questions about Hunt or anything about BD?
For clarification, are you talking about the Excel sheet that was included on our
yeah, sorry, that was it's a lot of tabs. Yeah, so that would be it's the March 22 I think it's called commission tracking off the top of my head. That has all of our particular departments enrollment goals, if there's any. Every tablet's a little different based on what it's pertaining to. So membership might look a little different than our programming in regards to rec programs or summer camp or school age. So all that information in regards to numbers of registrants are there. And there are some other things in regards to events that are on there as well that I just mentioned. So.
And it looks like it's part of a SWOT exercise.
Yeah, so it's a mix. So part of my goal was to have the quantitative analysis, but also the qualitative as well. I thought that was really important for us, as a department to move forward, is to look at the numbers, but also look at what we're doing well, what we can do to improve. So yes, so.
I think that is very helpful and makes this a more streamlined, sort of easy process. As Anna knows, I remember back when we both started at this, and it was a very different process. Adam, would it be possible to just share your screen so we can see what this looks like?
Yes.
And for future reference, we can walk through how to orient ourselves to these updates.
Yes, give me 1 second to pull that up, and I will gladly share that for you. And again, each tab will look a little bit different, just based on the nature of what's being reported on. So I will pull it up. Give me one.
I have it too, Adam, if you want me to.
I just got it. Thank you.
Great. Mhm.
Oh, I'm disabled, Anna. You cut me off from sharing. Sorry. So you have to share it.
Shoot, sorry, I don't know how to do that. I'll just split up. All right, there you go.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
So yeah, so at the bottom, there's a bunch of tabs which kind of break down all of our budget lines. And we can go into specifics, and maybe for next commission, I'll kind of break down on each of them. You know, some of them are pretty straightforward, like summer program relates to summer camp, but some of them might be not as clear. So, but each tab has particular different things. So for example, if you want to pull up membership, Anna, for me, that'd be great. Sorry, the other one, 4317. So this particular tab is related to our memberships itself and how much we're selling. So this one will look a little different than some of our other ones, you know, things like group exercise or our general rec programs that just show registrations and cancellations. But I thought this would be a good tool for people to share to have the information in front of them. How many people we're getting in the building or how many registrations we're getting. And like I said, each tab will look a little bit different. So underneath here, you can see where our active memberships are for recurring memberships, which includes anybody who has a monthly draft of their account. 3-month memberships are those that are active that have 3-month memberships, annual memberships, and then kind of at the bottom of each of them has a revenue goal and where we're at based on where we're at with the fiscal year. So that's kind of each, like I said, each of them look fairly similar, but a little bit different, but each will have the SWOT analysis on the side on the right. And then anything upcoming in regards to events or promotions or feedback, if they're getting a particular resounding theme of, you know, the temperature of the pool is 2 degrees off, or, you know, this program's really great. Those things we would include there. So yeah, so any questions about this at all? Or is any other information that you think would be pertinent that I could add from April's report?
I think this is a helpful tool. And I appreciate, Adam, you sent it well in advance of the meeting, so it gave ample opportunity for review. Is the plan in future meetings to, I mean, I think going through tab by tab may take some time. Is there, what are you sort of envisioning as we use this to stay informed going forward? Do it sort of individually and bring up any questions?
Yeah, my thought would be kind of like our minutes, just you can review at your own pace. And if you I don't know, you notice that this particular budget line is way under where the fiscal year is, what's happening if we're not explaining it in the strength suite, the SWOT analysis. I wouldn't want to necessarily bog you down with all the specifics of budget stuff, but I just wanted to give that information out so you guys could look at it. And then, like I said, just update you on some of the 50,000 feet things, like, you know, events coming up and things like that. So.
Great. I think this is a helpful tool. Any other thoughts? All right. Great. And anything else under department updates?
I just wanted to very quickly under other facilities, just a reminder, next Wednesday night is the Ride Out informational planning session. We have heard from, well, backing up, we sent out notifications to all abutters. We've posted the meeting in the journal, it's on our website, and it's also been shared via the town news flashes. And the word is definitely getting out, which is really great. We're hoping to have some good attendance. I did get some information from a resident in the Ride Out area who shared some documents with me from 2008. So about 10 years before I started here, where this similar discussion was already had regarding CCYB and the installation of temporary fencing and some other pieces. So I need to review all of those documents to get a better grasp on what was promised 10 years ago. But certainly the concept of hosting the meeting is doing what we wanted it to do. It's letting people provide feedback. But ultimately it seems like there was an agreement made between the Recreation Commission potentially and the residents. There's about 500 people that signed a petition to not have temporary fencing put up. So just giving you a heads up on that. The concept with the informational planning meeting next week is to have CCYB present what they're looking for support in doing, hear feedback from the residents, and then as a commission decide if you would like to submit a letter of support for those projects, as simple as that. So certainly if it's a really large discussion and we're not in a place to, or the commission's not in a place to make a recommendation one way or the other, that's fine too. We just wanted to have a forum where people could hear what might happen and provide some feedback. And I think we will definitely get that. So just a heads up.
Thank you, Anna. Just for reference, the temporary fencing, is that seasonal or is that game by game? Matt had some good questions on this earlier today to me.
Yeah, seasonal. It was April through end of June-ish. I don't know all the details exactly of the CCYB plan quite yet, but they were proposing some temporary fencing on field 2, I believe it was, that they would put up, take down, and store just for the baseball season.
Anna, other documents that we'll be able to review beforehand. I know that you did email around the meeting, but do they have and I apologize if you did send this and I missed it. Do they have a presentation or a proposal that we can see beforehand? Could we see the prior agreement from 2008 so that we'll be armed with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll definitely get, Adam dug through the old binders today and got the meeting minutes from 2008. So we will definitely get those emailed out. And as of right now, I do not have any sort of formal document from CCYB, but I can certainly request something from them. I don't know if they were planning to just speak or if they were going to do a PowerPoint of sorts, but I can follow up. And if they do have something, share it with you and post on the website so the public can see it as well.
Great. I think it would be helpful to have that in advance of the meeting. Additionally, with the petition that was signed by 500 people, it may make sense to have an understanding if those 500 people still reside in the town. If they were abutters, if they are still abutters.
Boy, that would be a good starting list for our needs assessment.
Yeah, I will do my best to figure out that information, Casey. I know the woman that I spoke to today who shared it with me, it was townwide, obviously 500 people. It wasn't just, those that live right near the park, but the West Concord Advisory Committee was also involved in it back then, that discussion. So she included me on an email to their chair. I haven't heard from him this afternoon or this evening yet, but I'm hoping I'll have a conversation with him before the meeting as well.
Great.
Where does the approval has to come for final approval on the project? Is that DPW? Who approves or disapproves?
This is kind of that dance that we had at Emerson Park too. We're not parks and recreation, so
Right.
I wouldn't think that we are the end all. We're a group that would advise and, provide support or feedback. It certainly goes through Public Works and it certainly would go through the town manager's office as well,
Okay.
potentially facilities as well, depending on what the project may entail. And then the final blessing, I believe Matt would go to the select board for final approval.
So it starts with Public Works. Okay, got it.
Anna, it would be, sorry, go ahead, Matt. You're still muted.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, for example, in getting materials in advance or something that you mentioned, Anna, field number 2. I mean, as a layman, I couldn't tell you which one's field number 2.
Come on, Matt, you don't know the field numbers?
So just
in the
saying,
middle.
if they just came in and said, hey, we're going to put fencing up around field number 2, I'd be like, I don't know what you're doing.
Fair. I can definitely get that map out to everybody. And I'll get an email zipped out to CCYB tonight. Strongly recommending that they provide some documents ahead of time so people can see them.
And a real quick, field number 2 is the one that is closest to Losbrook Road, isn't it?
Field number 1 is the newest field closest to Losbrook.
Okay,
And
so
then field 2 is the middle. And then there's the backfield, the softball field.
that's,
That's what I was afraid of.
yeah,
I believe that's what their request was in the email that I saw from this winter.
that's smack dab in the middle of the park.
Yeah,
Correct.
Okay.
It's going to be a very good forum.
And is Public Works going to be at the forum as well?
I do not think so.
So it would be helpful to have better coordination with or not Public Works, or Parks. Will they be there?
I do not think so.
Okay, it would be helpful to coordinate with them if they also have an approval process. Since I know that often in municipalities, it is Parks and Rec, but we operate separately. I think on things like this, we should get into a habit of coordinating with them. I know that you have conversations with their director, but there should be, even if it's chair to chair or some type of formalized interaction with things that need dual approval, basically.
Yeah, I agree. And this is that piece that is always in the back of my brain for the recreation facility strategic plan. So there is no one place where this is like really clearly spelt out what the process is, who goes first, and then it goes to which group, and then it goes to which group. It's not really spelled out well for anybody. So I think that what you're saying, Casey, is absolutely imperative. And I think if we can document that somewhere, somehow, the recommended procedure and groups that need to be involved in forums or public meetings or whatever you would like to call them, I think that'd be really important to put in the facility strategic plan. So we stop running into this question, but I will absolutely reach out to Public Works. Those guys are the ones that help us line the fields, mow the fields. Parks and Playgrounds is through the facilities department. They help with the playground inspections and some maintenance, but they work closely with Public Works to not be double dipping. And then there's us, Recreation, who books the fields. So you can see how everybody has a very different role in the operation of one space, and nobody necessarily feels like they're the ones to make the final decision.
And also not the ones to hold the bag when people are upset. So I think that there's something very real here in terms of an org chart that shows who's responsible for what, because an average citizen may not understand that and become quite frustrated, as they did with the Emerson Park signage. And we operate in our own silo where it's sort of like, yeah, terrific. We think another scoreboard would be great. Matt and others, thoughts on this?
well, I have two concerns spinning off of that. One is that for this meeting, I think the public needs to know who decides on this and what the role of the recreation department. We can make recommendations, or we can't make decisions on this. Decision starts with Public Works and ends up with the select board. So I think somehow in this forum, even though we're sponsoring it, that has to be clear. Second of all, if the deciding body or the first deciding Public Works, they need to hear what the public says. So they need to be at this meeting, because they need to move forward on the recommendation. If there's a groundswell of opposition for some reason, you can communicate that to them, but they need to hear that directly, I think. So, I think it's all related to the clarity of how this works in town, which is not clear.
I will absolutely invite everybody.
Yeah.
And, and this may be something that goes to the assistant town manager and the select board to review, but these entities should probably have a clear sort of understanding too of who can do what. I know that CCYB has been really committed to doing the fundraising for enhancing a lot of our baseball and softball fields. And I think in order to maintain those relationships and appreciate those efforts, but also communicate effectively what's needed and what's okay and what's not, and where we run into things, is to show sort of what is this clear path for approval. Because these are volunteers and they're raising their own funds typically, but they're also looking to be, modify, take part in a town-wide asset. So I know that we ran into this with Phil Gibson from CCYB. I don't know if it was a year ago, it was over a year ago, with Ripley. I just having more clarity on this, and I don't mean to dump it all on you because you're one of the, one actor in this. But Matt, if you have any thoughts from a select board perspective on how we codify a procedure that makes sense.
Yeah, I wish I had more insight on that. I think in the past, when it's come to these kinds of facilities, the select board, though, we are a decision-making body. I mean, you just take the scoreboard as an example. We're looking to the Recreation Commission and others to make a recommendation, and we're normally going to be very aligned with whatever that recommendation is. Unless we have a bunch of citizens that are coming in a different direction. But I actually don't have like a flow chart or anything that I could show people about how this works.
But Matt, generally speaking, so the select board is going to rely, so the way the flow of governance works, if this specific matter comes up, it comes to one of the boards or commissions that, sort of works upwards toward the select board. As you said, you guys are counting on the feedback. We don't want to put you ahead of that process and sort of say, well, the select board has the ultimate say, it's up to them.
No, right. Yeah, I'd love to get, you all to say something first.
You guys aren't.
Right. Yeah, just say, hey, it's kick it upstairs. These guys take care of it. Yeah.
They've got nothing else.
We'll just look and go, we don't know anything. Yeah.
But and I think maybe that's something to be flagged for the assistant town manager. And maybe it's like a dual hearing process. And the commission members from all of the relevant commissions have to sit together to vote on something. I'm not sure, how we want to proceed, but it shouldn't be done in a siloed manner as it has done. It's not fair for the select board, for the residents involved, and it's certainly not fair for the organizations that are seeking approval.
Mm-hmm. No, good feedback.
So Anna, is it your sense this is going to be a controversial project and a contentious meeting, or is this?
Based on the conversation I had today, I don't think this person, or representing a community of people, I don't think she wants it to be at all. I think they're all having a little bit of PTSD because 2008 was very confrontational, I guess. And she doesn't want it to be that. And she was terrified that we're trying to, or CCYB is trying to sweep that time under the rug and just move forward with nobody knowing that that conversation has already happened. So I tried to reassure her that it's really informational. It's nothing is getting decided and stakes aren't going into the ground the next morning or anything like that. So she was going to reach out to some folks from West Concord. And I told her, like I just said to you all, that I would reach out to CCYB and see if they could post some materials so people could even decide if they did want to come. So the three pieces that I'm aware of for CCYB, they wanted to replace the padding on the backstop on, I think, field 2, as they already have with field 1. They wanted to put down some of that rollout camping turf in the batting cage to keep the weeds from growing up. And then they wanted to do the temporary fencing. So 2 of those 3 topics people may not really care about, but the fencing for sure. So
yeah,
I just wanted to mention that, that time, what, 14 years ago, it was pretty confrontational. I remember it. But that in the interim, we had the redesign of Rideout Park, you know, with the change of the fence lines and the parking lots and everything. And that actually was I think, a very collaborative and smooth process. And I mean, you know, we should seek to have that kind of approach. So that's why I've been encouraging, you know, get the West Concord Advisory Committee involved, get kind of, you know, a community-wide process going so that it doesn't start to become something like that, you know, of days past. Yeah, further past.
Point, Matt and Anna, do you have, I know that a lot of the ride out improvements were done early in your time, but I'm wondering if we have some of the, if you're able to just pull from some of the institutional knowledge there. And additionally with CCYB, their current leadership, I'm not sure they even lived in town in 2014. I mean, they may have, I'm not sure, but they may have their own institutional history that they don't have full access to. Sorry, my dog is very eager to get in the action.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I have to read through all the minutes from the 2008 meeting, but there was wording about a compromise. And part of that compromise was to take it from 4 fields to 3, which has happened at Rideout. So I've got to just look at all the details, definitely get caught up to speed with the forums that were had for the recent Rideout improvements, talk with the deputy town manager about all of this and the processes and getting all the players at the meeting. And we'll keep everybody updated if I can gather some pieces before that meeting on the 30th.
Thank you, Anna. And hopefully in the future, this isn't something that just RAC has to deal with. This should also be the other departments reviewing this as well.
That would be great. Yep. And I'm sure that they would be on board to do that with us. So that's all I have for other facilities. Thanks for hearing.
Thank you, Anna. So we'll move on to reports from liaisons. Matt, let's start with you from the select board.
I guess we pretty much covered all the things that I can think of right now. You know, unless you have questions for me. You know, we had the public hearing, it went swimmingly for Recreation Department. I think that the main questions were really around deferred maintenance at BD and the necessity likely to come in the next couple of years of a more of a capital campaign or some other fundamental shift. So that caught, you know, I think gave people pause, but it's not a this year item. You know, as far as other things of note, I mean, I'm trying to think. I don't, nothing recreation related that I'm aware of.
Thanks.
I mean,
Matt.
other than, well, I guess White Pond, right? Is that of concern or interest? But the chair of the select board is intending to put out a statement about vandalism and trespassing at White Pond, as well as at other places at Estabrook Woods. You know, this taken place recently in the town, and just really calling out that, you know, while people may have differing opinions about projects, that this type of behavior is not appropriate. So.
Thank you, Matt. Sorry, the dog is getting a little feisty. Paul, do you want to talk about CPC? Because Amrith from the Finance Committee is not with us this evening.
Things just rolling along. Everything's town warrant article is in. Diane Proctor presented in front of FinCom, which I understand was quite interesting. I think the recreation project went smoothly compared to everything else that required a lot more money. So next step is town meeting. I would remind everybody that the next set of applications is due in September. And I think that given this new spirit of collaborating with other departments, we ought to think about, you know, appropriate CPC projects that involve rec and other departments. And we have time to do that, but maybe that's a good thing for the commission to think about.
That's an excellent point. Okay, thank you, Paul. Public input. Carlin Reed.
Oh, hi, thanks, Carlin Reed, 83 Wits End. I just scoped out the CCYB website, and I don't see anything on the front page about this proposal. That would be a useful place to have some documentation or even a map so that folks like me who have no clue what's going on know where this field number 2 is and how the fence would be supposed to be oriented. So it's interesting, and I do plan on to attend based on today's discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carlin. Any other public comment? And again, I'd just like to reference that my dogs are in the background. My apologies for the noise. Al, Easter Day?
Sorry, it's that's my husband. I'm Jean Easterday. And Anna, we spoke this morning. So I live at 48 Maple Street. So I'm an abutter to Ride Out Playground. And thank you all. Thank you all for the entire conversation tonight and for your service. And then thank you for the Ride Out piece. And so I know you spoke quite a bit about Ride Out. I was around in 2008 and have the petition and sent along a lot of that information, including a lot of comments from the petitioners about why they didn't want fences at Ride Out Playground. So Anna can send that off to all of you. I'll just read through. I just had a couple of quick comments. One is back in 2008, I'm not sure, it definitely was the Recreation Commission that kind of gave the final word on what would happen with the fencing. So it's perhaps they sent something up to the town manager, I'm not sure, or the selectmen, but it was very clear in the meeting, a public forum that was held, that so many people showed up and there was a swell of support against the fences that the decision was kind of made at that point. So just wanted to that was a kind of a point of order tonight, make that point known. The other thing is just notification. So again, thank you. The process is working in the fact that the abutters were notified. But from my perspective, nobody else in West Concord really knows about this. So it was mentioned that it was in the journal. I have the journal and I looked through it and I couldn't find it in the journal. So it's not there. I spoke with the West Concord Advisory Committee Chair, Jeff Walton, tonight, and just said, I want to make sure you're aware of this, and they are not. He said to the best of his knowledge, he was not aware of this proposal. He said he may have missed it though, it's possible, but he was not aware, and he's the chair. So they're going to try to, he didn't know the date of the meeting next week, so they'll try to send somebody to that. So I think just in the future, perhaps, if it's something regarding Ride Out Playground, the abutters, of course, are super interested, but it's all West Concord, right? All West Concord goes there. And there's been a huge increase in housing since 2008 in West Concord and very little green space. So we're very protective to wanting to keep that open. The materials you all mentioned, thank you for asking about that, because we really don't know, other than this letter, what the proposal is, right? So thank you for that. If you could publish any of the materials, we'll try to, I think I'll put something out on the West Concord website, Facebook page, and just let people know about the hearing. And then if there's any materials, it'd be good for them to have it. You're aware now of the 2008 same type of proposal. And I guess that's really it. Oh, the only other comment I had just in listening to this whole thing was the long range plan and your RFP that you're looking at. Somebody had mentioned Peabody. I don't know, there used to be fields like behind Peabody. There appears to be a need for CCYB, right? For fields and they want to put fences up. Is there any way we could somehow leverage that land, or just reach out to them to think about that space too? Because behind there's no, it just might be a good place for fences. I don't really know enough about it, but I just thought I'd mention it. And that's it. That's all I have.
Jean, nice to meet you. Thank you for reaching out. Do you have other recommendations on places or groups that would be helpful to post for West Concord other than the advisory committee?
Advisory committee, and then there is a West Concord. Oh, Matt knows. But there's a I know there's a Facebook like Living in West Concord.
There's also a Nextdoor group.
Next door.
Yeah, so I have posted an event on Nextdoor, but it wasn't clear to me that that was that visible to use an event versus a post. So I did that. Also copied Jeff Walton on a note that was over 2 weeks ago with Adam, trying to reach out to coordinate, joint sponsorship of the event with the West Concord Advisory Committee, but didn't hear back.
Yeah, and an email went out to both the Jeff and is Jeff the incoming or the current? It's either Jeff's the incoming and the one that's coming in, the new coordinator of the president. An email went out probably 2 weeks ago at this point to them as well to let them know with the information on the agenda and stuff too. So
There's not a president of the.
Yeah, we mean like the chair of the.
So yeah, I sorry, I forgot the title, but yeah, it was whoever the current one is and the soon to be one after him. That was an email that went out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know it's. Jeff
Actually, one
Walton.
thing we uncovered on the select board was that we apparently don't have a liaison on the West Concord Advisory Committee. Somehow it was an oversight.
Well, thanks for that feedback, Jean. We'll definitely look at the Facebook page. And Matt, thanks for doing Nextdoor. I don't have Nextdoor. I've never used that.
Yeah,
but
and there probably would be worth putting an actual post on there. Again, the event, it seems like an obscure thing somehow. I don't know.
I just want to say this is a really ongoing challenge, Gene, of notification. How do we keep the public informed? There's a tremendous willingness and urge to, and there's a need to, but the mechanisms aren't all there. And there's probably a separate task force because there isn't a townwide newspaper that is really townwide. There may be a new one coming up. Everything is a bit of ad hoc in terms of letting people know.
Yeah, no, thank you. And this letter was great. And Anna was amazing because I emailed her and she got back right to me this morning and we already talked in person. So just can't thank you enough for your responsiveness. So thanks.
My apologies, my dogs kicked my internet connection out. Jean, thank you so much. Definitely, you mentioned there were comments from 2008 on why folks didn't want the fencing. That'd be very helpful to have. And, again, I know the field some of the aspects of Rideout looked a little bit different, but appreciate everyone's participation, any information you can provide for us. I know it sounds like I joined back in a conversation about notification. That is very concerning that it was hard to find and that it wasn't posted in the journal. So I will just leave that piece there as I know there was already a discussion on that.
Yeah, I believe it was supposed to be posted. So that's what had been said earlier, but I just didn't see it I went out and bought it. And then I used to get it online. I believe Anna said it's online, so you can check that.
Yeah, I'll clarify with the public information officer tomorrow. She submitted it for us and it's definitely on the online journal, but I don't have Jean saw it in the journal today or this week and it's not in there. So I'll clarify how she submitted it, but it definitely is online, but certainly should be in the print form as well.
Okay, I apologize. I'm working off of my phone right now. So if there are other folks who have further public comment, please feel free to speak up.
Not seeing any, Casey.
Okay, great. Anna and Adam, do we have a date for our April meeting?
Adam, did you guys preset one of those yet?
Not for April, just because with you back, I didn't know. And I don't know if you wanted to give us a couple of weeks after the informational planning meeting next week to maybe mid-April to schedule the next one.
Yeah, so we used to do the last Tuesday in April, I believe, everybody. So that's the week after April vacation week. It would be April 26th, a Tuesday night.
It's probably not going to work for me. My husband's on active duty orders the last 2 weeks in April. So I could try and figure out if I can get some help, but not guaranteed I can get there.
No problem.
I'm probably going to be on travel. I'm actually going to get on an airplane to California. Can't believe it.
What about, so Jen, that whole week is out for you, and Paul, that whole week is out for you as well?
Yes.
Okay. Would folks be interested in doing April vacation week? I'm fine with that, but I don't know if people are traveling the week prior. Jen, you're still not available that week.
No, unfortunately, wish I was.
No, that's no problem at all.
I'll be out of the country that week.
So we could go the week of the 11th of April, or we could shoot for the first week of May. So we are, let's see. The first
Anna,
week
why
of-
don't you walk us through some of the time sensitive things that you may need during April? And we can make our decision based on, whether or not a meeting a couple of weeks from now makes the most sense, or if it would be okay to push it to later in May.
I don't have anything pressing on my brain right now for the month of April. I think our biggest next move is the public forum and determining what the commission does, if there's any sort of letter of support or not. But presumably that could happen that night after the majority of the public discussion is done. So I'd be fine with early April or early May if that's easier for folks.
I would go ahead and recommend that we do May 3rd, which is a Tuesday evening.
Yep, works for me.
Does that work?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay. All right, excellent. 7 p.m. on May 3rd.
Great. Okay.
Okay, that is our last item. So with that, I will make a motion to close the meeting.
I'll second the motion.
Excellent. Roll call. Casey Atkins, Jen Lutz,
Yes.
Jim Howard,
Yes.
Paul Bohm.
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you all so much for your time this evening.
Have a good night.